What's up, y'all? My name is Deshaun Marvell. Welcome to the channel if you're new. Welcome back if you have been here. Today, we are continuing to talk about the undermining of Black American chattel slavery. Now, unlike the last video where I talked about the basics and what it was in practice, today I will be talking about the false narratives about Black American slavery that bother me a lot. Now, again, like I said in the last video, I honestly believe the most undermined and disrespected tragedy to happen in America is Black American chattel slavery. And this tragedy has so much misconstruing going on when it comes to debates, when it comes to talks, everyday conversations about Black American slavery, podcasts, media, comment sections. And today we're going to talk about all the main false narratives being made about Black American chattel slavery. So yeah, I don't want to waste time. Let's just get straight into today's video and let's debunk all these false narratives about Black American U.S. chattel slavery. Now, the first false narrative we're going to talk about is the legendary slavery is the past. This is one of the most popular ones that people say. In this whole video, when I say people, I mean white people, Asian people, Hispanic or Latino people, even when it comes to Black people racially. African people, Caribbean people, Black Caribbean specifically, Afro-Latino people, non-Black American people, period, and even within Black Americans, self-hating Black Americans specifically. This is who I'm referring to. The people who say all these false narratives, everyone who I just named, those are the people that say this. So always remember, when I refer to people, when I refer to these false narratives, these are the people that I'm talking about. The fact that this country as a whole has this viewing of slavery as the past, it happened years ago, always referring to it as the past is very dehumanizing and it's sickening. It's evil. And not just the fact that it's seen as the past, the way it's textualized, the way it's talked about, and that's what I'm going to talk about right now. Now let's break down how hypocritical this whole slavery is the past thing is and how it's really not genuine and the intentions are not in good faith. And the first way to clearly point out the hypocrisy of America's viewing of slavery as the past is to address the presidents of the United States. Now, I feel it is comical that the time frame of Black American slavery was from the 1500s all the way to 1865. This is the time frame that we're supposed to get over because it's the past. You got me? Good. This time frame is the past, while the cash dollars that we use today in America have literal presidents from that same time frame. And let's dive even deeper because these aren't even just presidents who are from the past and they just are on our cash dollars, right? These presidents on our dollar bills, on our coins, these folks actually participated in Black American slavery themselves. Now, the first person I want to address is ironically the $1 bill, George Washington. George Washington actually inherited slaves at, I think, 11 years old. Because again, I don't know if you watched the last video. If you did not, I don't know why you're here. Go watch the first video and come here. It doesn't make sense. Why would you watch the second movie of a trilogy? You don't even know what's going on. But in Black American chattel slavery, like I addressed in part 1, you inherited, you passed down your slaves to your children or whatever family member you want to pass it down to if you were a slave owner. And later on, George Washington owned hundreds of slaves. He was president from 1789 to 1797, which, what was going on in that same time frame? Please tell me. Andrew Jackson, the $20 bill, who owned hundreds of slaves as well. He was president from 1829 to 1837, which, what was going on in that same time frame? I think Black American chattel slavery. You know, that same time frame that people tell us is the past. Thomas Jefferson, the $2 bill, the rare bill, he owned over 600 slaves. He was president from 1801 to 1809, which, what was going on in that same time frame? You could only guess. The most valued bill, the $100 bill, Benjamin Franklin, Ben Frank, the blue bill, the most valued bill in America. And mind you, Benjamin Franklin was not a president. He was a governor and still owned slaves. He still did. In the 1700s, which again, what was going on in that time frame? By the way, these people are not only on our dollar bills. These niggas have monuments. They have statues. I mean, we literally have a Mount Rushmore, one of the most famous monuments in America, which these people are on this monument. But let's dive even deeper into this hypocrisy because I'm only just getting started. Trust me. Trust me. Because I also find it interesting how the person, aka people, aka the people that I mentioned earlier, these people will claim that slavery is the past, but these folks will have a full-blown conversation about 9/11 and the Holocaust. These folks never in their lives, when they bring up these two events, they would never talk about how long ago it was. They would never talk about how it's over, and they wouldn't make these constant references and making sure in your head that you constantly know that this is the past and it's not around, and all of these past things, they never ever talk about it being the past. It's always about the event, what happened, how wrong it was, and the grievance of that said event being 9/11 and the Holocaust. Because you've heard it before, the whole you didn't know a slave master. You weren't a slave. I didn't enslave you, so why should I pay for reparations? Because it's meant to say that this was so long ago that you have no attachment to it today, so why are you bringing it up? Because it literally has nothing to do with you. That's the intention behind those phrases. 9/11. You, me, probably didn't get directly affected by it. Meaning, you didn't lose anyone to it, nor were you there. You're probably not even from New York. But because you are American, you felt it. And we all have sympathized with stuff that doesn't have to be directly, done to us. But with slavery, this logic just goes out the window. This logic just doesn't exist. It just flies out the window. Because it's meant to say that you weren't there, you weren't directly affected. It didn't happen to you or your mom or your dad or your grandparents. So you shouldn't feel some type of way about it. You shouldn't even talk about it. And that's fucking stupid. Because I was literally not born when 9/11 was around. When 9/11 was around, I was not born. And anyone born on 9/12/2001 and after literally did not know about 9/11. They weren't directly affected by it. Just like the generation before us, the millennials, they weren't alive to see Pearl Harbor. Wasn't that like in the 1940s? But do we not still have to acknowledge Pearl Harbor, 9/11, the Holocaust? We actually get taught it with no choice. I mean, in history class, you don't have no choice but to know about these events. I mean, we have yearly days for these events. Pearl Harbor is a yearly day. It's on the calendar. 9/11 is, everybody knows when 9/11 comes, you spend the day to mourn about the event. And 9/11 is even more hilarious because you actually are told to never forget. There's literally a slogan telling you to never forget, no matter how long time goes by. Don't you ever forget 9/11. But slavery, you need to forget and be quiet about. But let's dive even deeper. Because it's already evil enough that slavery is apparently the past, even though we hypocritically honor presidents from that same time frame of slavery, people who participated in it themselves. We acknowledge past grievances, not even just in the world, but in America alone, like 9/11 and Pearl Harbor. But it gets even worse because the person who refers to and says things along the lines of slavery is the past, get over it. Move on. Forgiveness. Why are you still complaining? You don't have no attachment to it. You weren't enslaved. Your parents weren't enslaved. I didn't own you. Blah, blah, blah. All that nonsense. Lots of the time, this person is someone who celebrates holidays every single year. Veterans Day, which is a day that is meant to honor those who fought in wars of the past. Catch me. Stay with me. Christmas. Jesus' day of birth. The past. Easter, the resurrection of Jesus Christ, the past. This person celebrates their birthday every single year, which is based off of the first day you were born. And the first day you were born is based off of the past. Your wedding anniversary, when you got married or engaged in the past. Think about how hypocritical that is. Because if you really think about it, the person who says slavery is the past, they don't really have a problem with the past. Actually, everything they honor, everything they celebrate is the past, is based off the past. But this would be the same person who has a problem with slavery because it is the past. Christianity is based off of what? But the same person who literally worships the past will tell a black person that slavery is the past when the reason they go to church is to praise the past. Like, we can literally have eras like AD, we can have eras like BC, which literally are before Christ. BC is literally before Christ. And nobody has a problem with the past then. Now, mind you, this is lifetimes ago. It's so long ago to the point where we don't even have actual proof it's even real, which is why religion is a belief. It's a faith. It's the whole era of slavery is not a belief. It's not a myth. It's not faith. It's something we can actually see. It's something we can look up. It's way more recent than any era of any religion. Whether you want to talk about Buddhism, Muslim, it is way sooner than any religion you can name. And we never ever need to move on from that. And I think that's very hypocritical. How can we be religious? How can you be religious and say slavery is the past when your whole existence is based off the past? And I'm not knocking religion. I'm not saying you shouldn't be religious or anything. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying peep the hypocrisy. I understand why anyone could be religious in concept. I'm just pointing out the hypocrisy. That's very hypocritical. Because again, you clearly don't have a problem with the past. And I will get to the bigger picture later in the video, but just keep all this in mind. Keep all of these bad faith arguments and this hypocrisy in mind. Now, the next little sub point I want to make is this small detail that people use when talking about slavery and referring to it as the past. Because if you notice, anyone who refers to slavery as the past talks about it at the starting point and not the ending point. And I'll show you exactly what I mean by this. Because this is how it usually goes, right? The script goes, slavery happened long ago. I didn't enslave anybody. Black people are complaining about something that happened years ago that I didn't do. You're asking me to pay for reparations, but I wasn't even alive because it was so long ago. It was 400 years ago. It was something you weren't a part of. You weren't directly affected by because it was centuries ago. Ago, peep, ago. Past tense, ago, meaning the starting point. Meaning when it started. Ago means the starting point when it began. And this is important because never in society do we refer to abuse or someone's grievance at the starting point. We have never done that. We never will. And we never will in the future. Let's say someone is in an abusive relationship. Would the person refer to when the abuse started? No, because it would be he or she beat me all the time. Not he beat me ages ago. Another example, when someone refers to when they got bullied as a kid, in high school, at a job, at school, they always talk about the length, aka I got beat up, meaning constantly. There's no, like, it was a constant thing. Or they'll say they bullied me all the time. I got bullied all the time in high school. Man, they bullied me so much. Does someone ever refer to when they got bullied at the starting point? No, they say I got bullied the whole time I was in high school. They bullied me all the time. Every day I was bullied. Not I got bullied 10 years ago. You know how stupid that sounds? That would be weird. You know why? Because it doesn't sound right. And it don't sound right because we don't do that as people. But that logic goes completely out the window. Again, here it goes, flying when it comes to slavery. And it's on purpose because people do this for a reason. And the reason is they know when it ended and they know when it ended was not long ago. And you have to be on point to even get what I'm saying. You have to be so sharp when it comes to debunking and seeing anti-blackness. I study this stuff all day. I read books. I read hella books on anti-blackness. So I can see this clearly, and people like me, people who are black in power, can see this clearly. And that's because the length of slavery, well, the slave trade, honestly, was 250 years long. And I say that because black people were enslaved before the slave trade. It's just the slave trade was where the system of slavery was stamped. And that's where the whole reference to 400 years ago and 400 years comes from. Because if you think about it, the slave trade wasn't 400 years, but slavery was 400 years. So you had a slave trade being a stamped system was 250 years. Slavery amongst black people was 400 years in America. And the ending point was actually pretty recent, being 165 years ago. And it's funny because anti-black racism has not changed. That's why we talk about slavery in the first place. Because when we refer to 400 years or what we deal with is not just slavery, because yes, 400 years ago was when slavery started, but the idea that black people are less than, that has not left society. It's not left the world. It has not changed from slavery, because it went from slavery to the Reconstruction, um, you know, sharecropping era. Then it went to Jim Crow. Then it went to the crack era, the mass incarceration, the mass imprisonment era. And it goes to today, where anti-black racism is expressed through microaggressions and the gatekeeping of resources and ownership. And this person loves to refer to slavery being 400 years ago because they want to use slavery as the standard of anti-black racism and forget everything that happened after. When today we get discriminated against the most, clearly exonerated the most hate crimes are against us, the stats say it. And we talk about slavery because it set the standard of how we get treated today as black Americans, because today we are told that we have a victim mentality, and that we're in a post-racial society, so we need to shut the fuck up. And we're pointing this out because it's a clear lie. They have to keep referring to slavery and how long ago it was and using that as a standard for anti-black racism, because they know slavery didn't end long ago. And even when it ended, Jim Crow didn't happen so long ago. Redlining, the Highway Act, all the discrimination in every avenue of life having to deal with white people and white adjacent people who align with white supremacy, who control everything and created this racial hierarchy that people abide by, that ultimately subjugates black people in the end. And this is why time details when they refer to slavery are important, because what they want to do is make it seem like slavery ended and everything was just sunshine and rainbows after it ended. Like, this is purposefully so they can leave out Jim Crow and everything else that directly happened after it. Because, like, peep, they say slavery is over, bro. Get over it, bro. You're not enslaved no more. Get off the plantation. I've literally been told that in a comment. Notice, they didn't say lynching is over, bro. Jim Crow is over, bro. They don't say that. Nobody says Jim Crow is over. Nobody says the crack era is over, bro. They say slavery is over, and they say slavery only is over, meaning anti-black racism stopped when slavery ended, and slavery ended in 1865. That's when slaves were free. And they're purposely forgetting everything that happened after. This is why phrases like slavery is over, bro, get off the plantation, you still have a slave mindset, all of these are disrespectful, because one, it makes it seem like slaves were passive. They actually wanted and accepted slavery. They actually kind of liked it. That's what it makes it sound like. And two, this makes it sound like shit didn't happen after slavery, because then they will have to admit how close we are to Jim Crow, which ended in 1964, which literally means it ended 60 years ago. But they don't want to use that as the criteria for anti-black racism. That's why they keep it as slavery. Because they know 60 years ago, your grandparents were kids, your great-grandparents were full-grown adults, and they know that anti-black racism did not stop after slavery. So they have to keep using that as a standard. Slavery is a standard. Keep it as slavery. Keep it as slavery. Because if you don't, it will show how close you are to Jim Crow. And that's why they keep the stopping point at slavery and they don't talk about anything after. They have to stop, because what they want to do is push anti-black racism back as far as possible so we can make you feel like a victim mentality for talking about it today. Because slavery is the standard. You aren't enslaved. I'm not enslaving you, so I'm not racist towards you, even though I can hang you, be a Karen to you, sabotage you, gatekeep, redline, build a highway in your neighborhood. That's not racist. I mean, it could be worse. I could be enslaving you, because that's the standard. So you have to keep the standard as slavery. And just to shit on anybody who says that slavery is the past, let's just put this whole slavery in the past thing, let's put the time details into perspective. For example, to all you self-hating black men and women who give constant black culture away, you let niggas say the N-word, you give away all the music, you give away all the traditions, you give away the dap up, you give up every single tradition, everything we do, you let everybody else do it, you dick suck anybody who does anything that black people do. You pedestalize other races. You pedestalize Asian people. You pedestalize Hispanic people. You pedestalize anything that is not Black American. You pedestalize Africans. You a Pan-Africanist. You pedestalize Jamaicans and Haitians and Trinidadians, snow bunny lovers, white zaddy lovers. You love anime and listen to rock, and Black people didn't fuck with me when I was younger. All the self-hating Black people who have zero self-esteem and they just dick suck anything that isn't Black American. They seek non-Black acceptance so fucking bad. Y'all dumbasses don't even realize y'all could not have interracial relationships until 1967. Interracial dating was not a thing when your grandparents were even born. They did not get to see interracial relationships be legal until they were in double digits in age, until they were in their preteens. Emmett Till died in the 1950s, and Carolyn Bryant, aka the lady who set him up, the lady who set up a 14-year-old Black boy to be brutalized, she got to live and die in 2023 with no consequences. She never got convicted for that, neither the people that set him up, everyone who was around her. And that right there shows you how recent this stuff is. She died 2 years ago. She died in 2023. She got to live. The last survivor of the 1921 Tulsa, Oklahoma massacre, the Black Wall Street massacre, being Viola Fletcher, just passed away at age 111. She was, I believe, 7 years old when that massacre happened. Showing you again how close this stuff is, but they don't want to talk about this because they want to use slavery as the standard. Michael Jackson was 7 years old when segregation ended, meaning he had 6 years of life where segregation was legal. The Black Panther Party was invented in 1966, meaning your grandparents were kids and your great-grandparents were full-grown adults when the Black Panther Party came together and said, all right, we in this shit. And don't let the black and white photos fool you, because all of that is also intentional to make it seem like this shit is way far back when it's really not. This stuff is way closer than you think. That's why I hate anytime there has anything to do with the civil rights movement. Everything is in black and white. You can rarely find shit in color. Everything is in black and white. And when you look at colored pictures, you could literally see your grandma. Like, it reminds you of your grandma, because that's how close this shit was. There were slaves who lived long enough to see the first telephones in the 1800s, to see the first TVs in the 1900s, showing you that slavery is not this long bygone era. Because some slaves who were born on the back end of slavery and were alive to be free after it got abolished, they literally seen TVs and telephones. Black men could vote only 155 years ago. Black women could not vote until 105 years ago. We have only been granted citizenship and recognized as American citizens, even though we were here before the U.S. was even a thing. Don't get that misconstrued. We were here before slavery too, but it's been 158 years since the 14th Amendment. Now, let's just put the nail in the coffin and really stick it to the whole slavery is the past BS. I want to run down some stuff that literally comes from slavery that is around today still. And I'm doing this because I don't want to leave any point untouched. I don't want to leave no debates in the comments. I don't want to, leave no dead space. The tradition of policing and police started with slaves being slave patrol, because police are meant to and always have been meant to protect property and areas. Police are and never have been meant to protect people, and especially black people, because black people aren't viewed as people. So just know the police officers anywhere in society that you see today are an evolution of slave patrol. Stand on police, phrases like NWA, F the police, fuck 12, movements like Black Lives Matter come from the disproportionate, forceful aggression that we deal with when it comes to encounter with law enforcement. And no, I'm not talking about just the police pulling out a gun and shooting us. It's not just that, because again, that's the extreme, only using the extreme as racism. So anything else, if you aren't getting shot by the police, the cop ain't racist. I mean, it could be worse. He didn't tase you. So that bypasses how they talk to us, how they handle us, how they punish us, because obviously it's not just about getting shot by the cops, because COINTELPRO is proof of that. When the FBI would literally make organizations to infiltrate and break us up, showing it's not just about getting shot by the police. It's all types of ways that the police and the government and law enforcement tries to get to black people. Also, don't forget about stop and frisk being exonerated the most, meaning there are thousands of black people who are in jail or in prison right now for crimes that they did not do. And that debunks the whole slavery is the past thing, because is that slavery, everything I just mentioned? No, because slavery is not a thing anymore. But it's only because anti-black racism went from plantations to prisons. Not because they wanted slavery to end. No, 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 no. Only because they're doing what they can do and they're doing what they can get away with. And just like policing with slave patrol, all the most famous banks and insurance companies you know today started with us. Like Chase and like Wells Fargo, all of these banks, the bank that you're with right now, I guarantee it started in slavery. Because before you could insure your car, that insurance company that you're with right now started with slavery and insuring a black American slave. Because again, they were not people. They did not have the luxury of being people. I said that in part one. They did not have the luxury of being human because they were considered property. The whole stereotyping of black people, it goes on today, and it started from slavery. Now, there are thousands of stereotypes that we have, but I will run down the main ones. Black women have the sapphire, ghetto black woman, the mammy, the Jezebel, strong black woman. Black men, we have the brute, the BBC, the sexual, uncontrollable sexuality, the buck, the athlete, the thug. And I can go on about these for days, but I'm going to be specific and I want to give clear examples. Yes, they used to run experiments on black people in slavery like damn monkeys. But here's the kicker that makes it even more evil, because this was also without consent. And they were also not given anesthesia, pain pills, relievers. So they had to take being experimented on head on with nothing to recover, nothing to relieve your pain. And this is because white people believed that black people have a high pain tolerance, so that means we can do this. It was based on the belief that our blackness made us more durable, which is just a lie, and it's another justification. It's an excuse to make up why you're doing what you're doing without feeling bad about it. This leads to today, where in hospitals, doctor appointments, there's a clear racial bias in pain treatment, the way we're talked to, the way we're treated, the way we're handled in hospitals, pregnancies, especially when it comes to black women and pregnancies. Don't even get me started. Just period when it comes to health, therapy, whatever it is. Other people are treated way more gentle, way more caring. And it's all based on the lie that we are more durable, we're stronger, stuff like that. Another stereotypical lie, the whole fake lie about us being lazy and relying on food stamps and being from the hood and that we just can't do anything because we don't work hard. That stereotype comes from slavery, because slavery was also justified in the sense of black people are uncontrollable animals. They're kind of like children who need white supervision, like a parent. They need a parent. They need guidance to be productive. So them enslaving us meant they were disciplining us. They were doing the right thing because we're really helping you out because you're so lazy and you're so uncontrollable. I'm really just, I'm taming you because you need it. You need it. I'm not the problem. You need it. You're a beast. I need to calm you down. I need to discipline you. That's what slavery was based off of, or that was one of the reasons it happened. Now, mind you, this stereotype is hilarious because they literally didn't do shit in slavery. All they did was sit back, give orders, and watch black slaves build America, just like the CEOs, the white CEOs, do today, where the workforce will be a whole bunch of black people, a whole bunch of Hispanics, while white people and Asian people just sit in the office and don't do shit. And this stereotype is how we as black Americans get the whole work 10 times harder. We work 10 times harder than we should, even though we still don't get no credit. It still is never enough for white people, non-black people, period, in this racist ass system that uses capitalism to determine who socially and economically controls the country instead of slavery. Now, anti-black racism is through capitalism, which is why I say resources and gatekeeping is how anti-black racism is expressed. Please tell me you get what I'm saying. And since we don't have the social, political, or economic power, It's blamed on us. It's because of us and our lazy black asses who have no work ethic. Nobody else is called welfare queen. That is a term that is associated with us. We are associated with being poor, being from the hood, Section 8. And all of this stereotyping, mind you, is not blamed on the government, because all of those things that I just named are because of the government. We did not just wake up in Section 8. We didn't wake up in poverty. We didn't wake up with a low social wealth gap. We didn't wake up with this shit. We didn't come here with this shit. It happened because the system literally designed it to be there, and they are 100% responsible for it. But we are blamed. We are said that we have a poor hood mentality because we are so lazy. And we can't pull ourselves up by the bootstraps because we are so ghetto, because we don't work hard enough, because we are so hood. And let's be honest, less than human beings, because that's what the whole point of stereotyping us comes down to. And all of this has stupid justifications that are based on the same origin, the same thing. It's the same tactic that has been used since slavery, because it's a stereotype that is used to justify how we treat you. It justifies why the hate crime thing exists, why we exonerate you the most, why you get paid the least, why you're impoverished. And it justifies it because it's based off the same exact stereotype that was used to deny you humanity. But they can't deny us humanity because we got it now. We fought for our humanity, so now we're fighting for ownership and resources, because that's the way that anti-black racism is expressed today. So just like back then, they used this stereotype to enslave you. They use it now to deny you resources and ownership. Now, this whole poor, welfare, EBT, broke hood black people stereotype is goofy because subsidies, Social Security, SNAP, food stamps, medical, free lunches, all the government assistance that exists, the white people benefit from the most. But who are the face of these things? Us, not them. They lead in all of the government assistance, but who gets viewed as lazy? Us, not them. Also, this little thing I see in society where people, especially non-black people, will refuse to call black people people. Literally, some people call black people blacks, which is literally you refusing to call black people people. This way of thinking also comes from slavery, because slaves were not people. They were seen as property. And this shows today because the phrase boy and girl, already explained in part 1, that's what people used to call grown-ass black enslaved people. And they still do this in 2025. There's still today grown-ass black men and women who are referred to as boys and girls. And this is on purpose. Because I know we call each other that, but it's not the same. That's another topic for another day. That's where the ebonics comes in. And because they do it to dehumanize us. We do not use boy and girl the same way. And I've seen this so many times in public, not even just in media, in public, where non-black people in general do it, but especially white people. And this shows you it has history behind it, because mainly white people do this, and they do this because it has history behind it. And it shows you that this shit is not left, and they're not slick, because they'll do this thing where they'll call black men, they won't call them black men. They'll call them fella or guy or the boy or the kid, even though they'll be literally like 25 years old and older. These will be grown-ass men, and they'll be calling them the kid or kid. And this is based on the idea that black men are not men, because the rubric for what a man is really a white man. And they think if you and a white man are called men, that means you're equals. That means you're like this. And you're not like this, because you're black and you are inferior to the white man. And they ultimately don't view white and black men as equal, so they just call you anything but a man. Black women get the same treatment. They'll get called chick, girl, broad, things like that, and they'll absolutely refuse to call them a black woman or a black lady, because, especially black lady, because a lady, that moniker, is exclusively for a white woman. And they don't view black and white women equally. Hell, they don't view black women equally to any type of woman. Hispanic woman, Asian woman, black women are viewed completely different than any other race of women. And I don't even want to say race of women, any other ethnicity of women. Same thing with the men. Black, American, men and women are not viewed the same as any other ethnicity. And this shows with even a little phrase like nonchalant dreadhead, that's based on the dehumanization of us. Because think about it, it's meant to say that we're not caring. We're careless people. We have no regard for human life. We're emotionless. We're ultimately not human beings. That's what nonchalant dreadhead really means if we really want to get deep about it. And there's always this like racist dog whistling nicknames that the dominant society, white people, mainstream white media loves calling us, and they love engaging with that type of media. And it's sad because black people even laugh given to this and actually promote this BS. Just like YN, it's the same thing. But it's like we don't view it the same way, and we need to understand how others view us. Because when we do it, we call ourselves YN and nonchalant dreadhead, it's kind of like we're laughing with each other type of thing. Like, it means no harm, but when non-black people see that, they're laughing at us, and they're seeing that as a justification to be racist. And they see you as another outlet to dehumanize us. And that always leads to violence or subjugation. It always does. And trust me, this is one of the only like recent dog whistles, because there will be another one after, because there have been many before. I'm only mentioning this because it's just on my mind. Now, something I also forgot to talk about in the last video is this. They also taught slaves that they had a mental illness if they tried to escape. So they came up with a mental disease called drapetomania, and they diagnosed slaves with it if they tried to run away. These folks wanted to establish slavery so hard to the point where they went out of their way to create a fake disease to guilt trip enslaved black people and make them feel bad for trying to run away from being enslaved. Please think about that. Please think about that. You as a slave are mentally ill for not wanting to be a slave because, again, no, I'm not the problem as the enslaver. You are the problem. Now, I say this to say that this way of viewing black people has not changed, because this is exactly how we get today's negative labeling of black folks who are empowered, educated, or simply just stand on black pride and black empowerment. For example, someone like me in the real world, I'm viewed as an extremist, as a hotep, as a radical. And these things are not seen as positive things right now. They're not. Unless you're around other black empowered people. But in mainstream media, in the real world, you are not viewed as, you're not viewed as a good person. You're viewed as the person who's taking things too serious, making everything about race, obsessed with white people. And this is all to shame you for being aware and shame you for being black empowered. You're seen as crazy, seen as someone who's like emotional. You're not seen as someone who is rational. You're not seen as someone who is logical. You're seen as like a crazy man staring at the clouds. And I know this personally because I get viewed as this all the time. And that's why I'm super careful about who I talk to anti-blackness about, because I usually end up getting seen as crazy. Victim mentality, that's the same thing. Making you sound crazy. Someone who's stuck in the past. You're obsessed with race, obsessed with the white man. You're really thinking like a slave. You have a slave mentality. That is literally what this is. You overanalyze everything. And this is the same thing as drapetomania. It's the same thing. And I know this is so real because anti-blackness is so grained in society that you could simply say black women are beautiful and it'll be viewed as, oh my God, he's on his black power shit. Oh my God. It's almost like a character, like it's not even real. Literally saying black people are humans is controversial. It's seen as pro-black. It's seen as an extreme. It's seen as radical. And all of that has roots. That goes right back to drapetomania. This also is a thing when people say things like black people have PTSD, aka post-traumatic slave disorder. And I don't like this at all. I used to believe that black people have post-traumatic slave disorder, but that's really fucking disrespectful, because it makes it seem like we're bitter and like we're just not valid in how we feel. When no, it's not a damn syndrome. Black people have trauma today because we deal with the same anti-black racism. That's why. Not because of generations of abuse. It's just stuck in our minds. It's just in the back of our head. I cannot explain how disrespectful that phrase is. Like there's a baby in the womb and it's forming, it's getting arms, legs, it's calculating all the traits of both mom and dad. But oh, there's like a little gene kicking in. It's like a slave disorder, trauma from slavery. That's so disrespectful. Cause you know who doesn't get that disorder? People who suffered from the Holocaust, Hiroshima, Native Americans. Do they ever get this whole disorder thing, trauma disorder? I don't think so. And that's, again, to blame you, to not blame the system of white supremacy for the treatment of your people. And notice, do white people have a term for post-traumatic racist syndrome? I don't think so. But we get a disorder for how we get think about this. We have a disorder for how we got treated in slavery, but they don't have an this shit, you can't make this shit up. They don't have a disorder for how they treated us, but we get a disorder for how we get treated. Mic drop. Also, little phrases we use every day in our lives that either come from slavery or were used heavily in slavery. For example, the word motherfucker. This is one of the most used words, especially when it comes to curse words. It's probably top 5. This word comes from slavery, where slave owners will force you to have sex with your own mother or sister or even daughter as a humiliation ritual. Because don't forget, slavery was not about capitalism. It was about destroying your identity. It was about destroying your family structure and to traumatize and to humiliate you, because white people loved it, because they love feeling superior, especially more superior to black people. So they will force you to have sex with your mother, and then around the plantation, they would call you a motherfucker to remind you that you fucked your mom, and that's humiliating. So every time you use that word, just know where it comes from. The word uppity was used for black people who were basically acting like they were equal to white people. You're a black person who has thoughts and opinions that don't involve white people. You're a black person who doesn't think about white daddy all day and what white daddy thinks and what white mommy thinks. That's all that means, if we really want to dive deep. This goes into today's label of black people being called divas, too much, arrogant, conceited, cocky, rude, unprofessional, and many other phrases like these. And we're called these things because it's mainly from non-black people and especially white people. Because how dare you as a black person have an identity, have wealth, and have confidence that's outside of appeasing white mommy and daddy and catering to what white mommy and white daddy feel is okay for you to do. Also, playful phrases like eeny, meeny, miny, mo, catch a tiger by its toe. Little do you know, that phrase used to be catch a nigger by its toe. They also used to use the word picnic as pick a nig when Jim Crow was around, which wasn't slavery, but I need to throw it in there because it's fucking insane. Also, the whole usage of the word master bedroom. This is used in real estate every day. And this term was used to describe the slave owner's or master's house, which basically was the king's house, the pinnacle of white supremacy. But when we use it now, it just means the room where the parents or the oldest person in the house or the man of the house or the person who has control of the house most of the time, that's associated with the master bedroom. So remember, anytime you walk into the master bedroom in your house, just remember where it comes from. Also, not even just phrases, but things that just exist today that started in slavery. The whole reason we have Uncle Ruckuses, coons, Sambos, the token black friend, the Uncle Toms, the sellouts, black conservatives for the most part. All of these people, they have an origin, and that origin is from slavery. These are black people who do whatever it takes to sabotage black prosperity. These are folks in slavery who would purposefully adopt white speech patterns, talk like white people, and distance themselves from blackness at all costs. This leads to today, the shuck and jiver, which is usually what I call it, shuck and jiver, shuck and jiving, Shucking and jiving, you know, it basically just means the self-hating black person who usually covers for and defends any type of anti-black racism. Any type of racism that happens to black people, it is our fault, especially if it's by the hands of a white person. It is never their fault. They have a deep allegiance to white mommy and white zaddy, and they get in white, they get in Hispanic, they get in Asian spaces or around these people. Anything non-black American, they love it. They say negative things about black people. They do everything for anyone who isn't black American. They do it for non-black American audiences. They just parrot whatever negative lies about white people say about us, and they just do whatever white people tell them to do because their ethnic self-esteem is just so dog shit. They usually say things along the lines of, they don't like me because I speak proper English. They don't like me because I watch anime. I listen to rock. I don't talk ghetto. I don't wear Jordans, so I got bullied. I don't see color. I see people. Black people need to stop making everything about race. Black people just have a victim mentality. Nobody is holding you down. Stop blaming the white man. I'm more worried about getting killed by my own people than white people. We're our own enemy. All those, you know, type of talking points that you've heard before. If you're watching this video, you've heard them before. They're always downplaying race, even though they literally talk about race themselves, but they only do when it's time to dehumanize black people. They're basically white people's mascots, non-black American people's mascots, period. They don't say anything about discrimination, and if they do, they'll spend more time talking about how all cops and all white people aren't racist rather than the actual anti-black situation at hand. They praise any non-black musician, any non-black athlete, any non-black actor, any non-black person, anything that's not black American, they have 10 times more respect for, love, and admiration for. They will go on a whole documentary script talking about how great everyone else's culture is but ours. And all these things I will touch on in a future video, but they are an evolution of coonery. And it all started in black American slavery. Now, if this doesn't prove to you that slavery isn't just the past, then I don't know what the fuck does. I just spent a lot of time talking about this whole thing. And mind you, this is only a handful of stuff. I could literally go on and on about this shit all day. I could go on and on about anti-blackness all day. I'm just saying this to prove a point, to show you how much of this stuff is really not the past, and nor should be treated as such, because it's clearly not. I mean, look at what I've talked about so far. The next false narrative that we're going to debunk about black American chattel slavery is the classic, well, all white people weren't slave owners, and the not allism of black American slavery. The whole not all white people were slave owners thing, it is a fact. Not every single white person was a slave owner, obviously, but it doesn't matter because they all either enabled, benefited, had no problem with black American slavery. And if it wasn't any of those, it didn't matter because you inherited the social hierarchy of white supremacy. Anyway, you want to know how this whole not allism is obvious anti-blackness to undermine black American slavery? I'm going to show you how much bullshit this is. I'm gonna show you how this is bullshit. This whole like, oh, not every black person was enslaved by a white person. Not all white people were enslavers. I'm gonna show you how much bullshit this is. Hear me out. Do you think Joe Biden or Trump just benefits from being president? Do you think a CEO of a company just benefits alone? No, because everyone around them benefits. Even if you aren't a direct beneficiary, you benefit in a domino effect type of way. And I will show you a clear example. James Madison inherited slaves, showing you the system was inherited, meaning it wasn't just a single slave owner who benefited. Another example is James Monroe, who also inherited slaves because by birth, you are white. You are my white baby. That means you get benefits, meaning you are not enslaved, and you inherit slaves actually because your dad was a slave owner. You benefited because it was not just a single slave owner who benefited from black American slavery. And you know why James Monroe and James Madison could do that? Because if a slave owner owned slaves, it was not just him that benefited, aka he benefits, the wife benefits, The kids benefit, the relatives benefit, the entire family benefits. Anyone they do business with, anyone they trade to, anyone they try to employ, literally everyone around them benefits. Fuck that, because even if you were the most low-class white person, like the Irish and Italians who were viewed as like less than white people, they still didn't have to deal with what Black Americans went through because they were white. So that means they weren't enslaved. Because again, you're black. And like I always say, being black is before you being a baby. It's before your age. It's before your beliefs. It's before your religion. It's before your class. It's before your sexual orientation. It's before your pronouns. Because this country was based and originated off of Black American slavery, because race is everything. And slavery was not based on age. It was not based on belief, sexual orientation, religion. It was based off of, are you black or not? You are black, you are a fucking slave. And something else we need to understand with this whole not allism bullshit, slave owners aren't the only people that were involved in this shit, because that's really just the name of the person who owned the plantation. They were at the top, kind of like a CEO of a company. They enforced the rules on the plantation. They made up the rules of how the plantation is going to go. And don't forget, slavery was a thing, not because white people are smarter and superior and better as a race. No, it's because they had numbers and they loved terrorizing people, especially black people. So they went out of their way to enslave them. So they created a system that benefits them and gives them a superiority complex. And just like how we have the president now, where it starts at Trump, it trickles down to vice president. It trickles down to the senates, the secretaries, the first lady. The whole damn cabinet benefits, not just Trump. Everyone around Trump benefits. His wife, again, his kids, relatives, the entire family, anyone he does business with, anyone he employs, anyone he trades with, they all benefit. And this is where the hypocrisy comes in, because again, the logic is flying. It's flying again. You see it, it's flying away. It's going away. It's going out of the window, when we know this is how life has always worked. But when we talk Black American chattel slavery, we like remove this logic, because apparently just the slave owners and them alone were the only ones that were a part of it. They were the only ones that benefited from slavery. It was just the slave owners, and that's it, because all white people didn't own slaves. Like, that's the criteria for being a part of slavery. Let me tell y'all something. If y'all don't know, there were judges who reinforced slave laws. Then you had lawyers backing up slave cases, because remember, slave masters didn't enforce slave codes. They were just owners of the plantation because they had a lot of money and they wanted to own slaves like every other white person. The government was the one who enforced the slave laws. And the slave masters just owned the plantations, showing you it was not just slave owners who were participants of this shit. People also leased slaves. There were also slave overseers, slave catchers, cotton shippers, slave traders. All these groups of people, they're side characters to slavery, because they all had the same function, the same mindset, the same purpose, and the same way of thinking about black people, because this was a system. It was a system where everybody created and played a part in this shit. It was not just slave owners that just chose to enslave black people. It was just them alone. They were just lone wolves, and nobody else wanted to be a part of it, because it was just this one slave owner, and he just had thousands of slaves. No, that's not how it worked. That's not how systems work. That's like saying it's just the president, and then everybody else, there's nobody else. It's just Trump, and he's the president of everybody. No, because there's a cabinet, there's secretaries, there's vice presidents, there's everybody involved. And a little detail I noticed too is that slave masters, aka slave owners, are synonymous with the whipping of slaves. But little do you know, slave masters weren't the one whipping slaves for the most part, because that was slave patrol. Because again, that was slave patrol. I forgot to mention that too. Slave masters only whipped slaves when they buck broke someone, because that was patrol's job. Patrol was the one whipping people and keeping people in check. But slavery, notice, slavery is known for slave masters. When you bring up slavery, the mainstream idea of slavery is just plantation, picking cotton, slave masters, and whipping. There's nothing else outside of that. They don't talk about the judges that were a part of this shit. They don't talk about lawyers and all the other people and the cotton shippers and everyone else who played a part, and that's for a reason. Because it puts the blame not on white people, not on the system of white supremacy. It doesn't. It puts the blame on slave masters and slave masters alone, because it makes them look like lone wolves, and that downplays the intensity of Black American slavery, because it makes it seem like it really wasn't that deep. It wasn't that big of a deal. You know, it didn't play that big of a part in America being America, which America would have never been America if it wasn't for Black American slavery. And you know why slavery worked? Because it didn't need every single white person to be a slave owner. Because it had enough participation. It had side characters. It had people below the slave owners. There was levels to this shit. Everyone played a part. It had enough wealth to have an entire system. This is why systematic racism is a term. It had money behind it. It had lawyers, it had judges, it had everyone who played a part in it. Even if it wasn't all slave owners. Even if it wasn't all white people. Because again, even if you weren't a slave master, you were an overseer. You were a slave catcher. You were all the other things that are already named. And even if you weren't none of these, even if you didn't participate in it at all, you still benefited from slavery because you are not black. You are born white, and that means you are not enslaved, so you literally benefit. Now, before I go to the next false narrative to debunk, I want to dive deeper into this not allism by pointing out the blatant hypocrisy. Because this not allism is so disrespectful, because this is not only just said, right? This is an instant reaction to talking about slavery. This is not stuff that, you know, is said deep into conversations, deep into talks, deep into podcasts, deep into media. These are straight into the convo responses. You bring up slavery to somebody in real life, that's instantly going to be a response. Not all. Slavery is the past. These are instant responses. These are top comments. These are strong feelings people have instantly on your everyday podcast or social media outlets, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, news broadcasts. As soon as slavery is brought up, these false narratives are brought up instantly. Not all slave owners enslaved black people. Okay, not all Nazis had Jews in concentration camps. Not all of them did it. But is that ever said? No. Because if you look up 9/11, you look up the Holocaust versus any grievance, pay attention to how there's no videos of people undermining these events ever. Nobody compares them to other things. They're trying to compare immigrants and ICE to us being enslaved. They do it all the time. Everyone uses us and brings us up when it's when someone is going through something and it's wrong, it's disrespectful. Nobody plays that game with other people's grievances. Nobody plays that game with 9/11 and the Trail of Tears and Sandy Hook and the grievances of anyone who is non-black American. They do not bring their issues up to compare to anybody else's. And that's very telling. Now, the last false narrative that we're going to debunk are false equivalences. And the first false equivalence is the classic, they act like they're the only ones who were enslaved in history. This is the most bullshit take to ever have about black American slavery, because never has anyone ever said or implied that we were the only ones who have went through slavery. But the person who says this has to force this false narrative, because that's the only argument that they can actually debunk and that they can make. Because every single person knows we were not the only ones that were enslaved. Every black American, every person who brings up black American slavery knows that we were not the only ones. Literally no one. I am 100% sure there is not even 1% of black people who believe that we were the only ones who were enslaved. That's just simply not true. Now again, let's use this logic with other people. Let's do this again. Let's keep this pattern up. Because this phrase is so disrespectful, I cannot explain, but I will try. If you watch part one, you know what black American slaves went through, right? That's rape, mutilation, identity being taken from you, kids being taken away from you, all types of evil, demonic shit. Now imagine going to a judge after you took someone's identity, raped them, all types of just evil, mutilated them, all types of just whipping, Imagine you go to a judge after someone does this to you, and the judge says as soon as the case starts, well, you're not the only one who this was done to, so the person who did this to you is innocent. I know if the judge says, I can't convict them because you are not the only one who this has been done to in the world, you're not the first one. You're not the only one. I guarantee the person who says that we act like we're the only ones, if this happened to them, if this came to fruition to them in real life in a courtroom, they would be absolutely pissed and they would go and protest and start a whole movement. This is BS because usually when we describe our experiences, we're not just talking about slavery. We're talking about racial discrimination. The whole 400 years thing, it has gone on for centuries. It has not stopped. It's not. It has never stopped. It is so unique to us because it has not stopped. It has went on for centuries and it has not stopped. It has went on and on. It has not stopped. There's been no consequences. Even before slavery, we were getting kicked out of native tribes. And this is documented facts. Yes, people were here before Columbus. Black people were here before slavery. I know white people didn't teach you. I know white mommy and white zaddy aren't going to tell you that. I know if you go up to white mommy and white zaddy, they're going to tell you it's not true. But trust me, this is documented facts. Look up the Dawes Rolls. Look up $5 Indians. Dawes rolls, Dawes rolls, like Hawaiian rolls. Look it up, and that will show you that we were here before slavery even began. We've been getting discriminated against before the slave trade even happened, before they brought African people to America because there were black people who were already traveling the world. Like, this racial discrimination has went on for I don't know why I keep saying 500 plus years. We have been discriminated against. But this person will play dumb because that's how anti-black that they are. They will literally make arguments that nobody has ever made just to make a point that isn't even based on reality. Nobody has ever said we were the only ones. And if you want to use that argument, you're fucking stupid. The next little subcategory of the false equivalences is the black people are talking about slavery when most didn't even go to the U.S. in the slave trade because most of them went to South America. Now, again, this is not false. This is true. Most slaves went to South America, 12 million, I believe, because 400,000 went to the United States of America, which was called the 13 colonies at the time. Now, I want to ask you a question. What in the fuck does most slaves going to Brazil prove, change, or do? If I have 20 points in a basketball game and 11 of them come off of free throws, but the other 9 are off of three-pointers, does that change the fact that 11 of them are from free throws? No. What I'm trying to say is, bringing up Brazil literally means nothing because black people were here, enslaved here, so it literally does not matter. It does not matter if there was a billion in Brazil or a billion in outer space. It doesn't matter if there was 12 trillion slaves in Brazil. It does not change anything that happened here. Because slavery happened here in America, whether there was 12 million or 12 slaves in Brazil or not. This little detail, again, it's a little detail. Notice how never in history are there a group of people who talks about a whole different continent or country when it comes to their issues and grievances and trauma or their history. White people, Asian people, Hispanic people, nobody ever talks about us when they bring up their history. But we got to bring up Brazil. Details. Brazilians never in their fucking lives, never will in their fucking lives, and never have in their fucking lives thought about us or included us in their struggles, in their grievances. But notice, nobody pressures Brazil. Nobody ever tells Brazil that there are 400,000 people that got enslaved in America, so you need to be quiet. Nobody has ever went to a Brazilian. Nobody has ever went to Brazil and said, y'all need to think about black Americans because your experience isn't exclusive to you. You weren't the only one enslaved. Black Americans were enslaved too. When have you ever heard that? You haven't. But we have to talk about Brazil every time. We have to talk about everybody else and bring everybody in. We got to talk about everybody else in every different era. We always have to talk about everybody else because, again, they don't give a fuck about everybody else. What they want to do is undermine what happened to us. And this is so stupid. Think about a kid who got bullied. Do you think they would talk about someone else being bullied? Let alone in another country or another continent. Imagine your child comes up to you and says, Dad, Mom, I got bullied. But there's also people being bullied in Brazil. You'll be like, what the fuck are you even talking about? But this is a part of anti-blackness, undermining history. And this is what people have to do. They have to reach so fucking far. They have to reach far. They have to reach to a whole different continent just to make a false narrative. Because they know no other group has been enslaved in this country. Notice, we're the only people who have been enslaved in America. That's why they have to bring up other people from different continents. Why are you talking about shit in a different continent? We not there and we not talking about it. So why we bring it up? That's because you know Brazilians weren't enslaved here. You know anybody else wasn't enslaved here. We're the only group of people who've been enslaved in America. You know that. That's why you got to bring up other continents and other countries and fucking outer space. They got a point outside of outer space just to make a point that isn't even a point because, again, what is the point of bringing up the fact that slavery was in Brazil? And again, do you go to Brazil? Do you think the same person goes to Brazilians and tells them that 400,000 slaves were in America? Do you really think they do that? Do you think they keep the same energy for everybody else? And you know why you don't say that to Brazil? Because you respect them. You see their humanity. You see them as an ethnic group. You view them the same as you. You view them as equal to you because you view Brazilians higher than Black Americans, if we're being 100% honest. Because you view us as these lost Africans who don't really know where they're from. We're bottom of the totem pole Black people. We're the lowest. There's Africans, there's Caribbeans, there's Afro-Latinos, then there's us. We are the bottom of the barrel to you. That's what you think. You think we are people who have no history, no accomplishments, nothing. We aren't shit to this country. Even though we built it, even though everybody fucking copies us, even though everybody wants to be us, you think we aren't shit. So when you view us as less than people, of course you will disrespect us. Of course you will tell us to bring everybody else up when we talk about our grievances because you don't see us as people. You don't see us as people who deserve respect or sympathy or humanity. And if we do, not as much as other people, especially compared to white people. And speaking of white people, the next thing I want to talk about is white people and the false equivalence of my people were also slaves. Now, here's where the disrespect really just gets out of hand because the majority in this country being white people are trying to spread this kind of like childish get back anti-Black revenge to Black people. Because what they'll do is we'll talk about our grievances like Black American slavery. And here they come in talking about how their people were enslaved too. And lots of the time when the whole my people were enslaved too is referenced, it usually comes from, or when it's referred to as white people, most of the time it's specifically talking about white Irish people. And when you hear people themselves or someone refer to them as being enslaved, it's literally a lie. And I say that because the overall point in them saying that they were enslaved is to say that I went through something the same or even similar to what you went through being Black American chattel slavery. So you need to shut the fuck up because you don't hear me complaining like you are when we went through the same thing and I have the same opportunities as you and I was enslaved too and look how I turned out. That's the whole point of that. Because again, details, they don't say my people were servants too. They say my people were enslaved. And they do this to combat Black people's grievances by saying that their people were slaves because they don't bring this up any other time. They don't give a fuck about their own slavery. They don't even bring it up. And they do this because they know Black Americans view slavery as chattel slavery, and it's been synonymous with us. And the standard of slavery has been our slavery, especially in America because we're the only people to be enslaved in America. So white people will do this, and it doesn't have to be them. Sometimes it'll even be Black people, which is sad. They will even say that white people were enslaved too. Shucking, jiving ass niggas. And it's for reasons And it's not for reasons that you think. Because you would think this is a sweet thing, that they're just such a humanitarian and they're just thinking about everybody and they just want to talk about how slavery is just so bad overall. But no, this whole point of this is to over-exaggerate white people's experiences, not to actually talk about their slavery, but really just to victimize themselves so they can equate their experience to our experience, so they can ultimately all lives matter our experience and just drown out and whitewash our experience. And they do this knowing the intention, the origin, the brutality, the motivations behind it, and the intensity of Black American chattel slavery and their supposed slavery isn't the same at all. When you compare it, which I'm about to, it's not close. And even thinking about it as close, even trying to make it seem like it's close, is disrespectful. It's so disrespectful. Now let's just put this to bed and let's actually talk about this whole slavery that they apparently went through. Now, indentured servants, they were people from England and other European countries who were seeking economic opportunities in the colonies, which is what the U.S. was called. These people actually agreed to indenture, agreed to escape poverty and pay off debts, because they were contracted. Again, contracted, consensual. Now, after they completed their contracts, they were given money, land, or just whatever they needed help with. And again, this slavery lasted from 5 to 10 years. Now, this should tell you it's not the same at all, but I'm just going to keep going because I don't want to leave no dead space. I don't want to leave no debates, which I'm sure someone still will, because people are just trying to find where I fuck up at in this video that they are not critiquing or talking about, and it's on purpose because they don't care about this topic. They just want to be a contrarian. They want to undermine Black American slavery, which I'm not doing. Now, I might repeat myself in part 1, and I hope you watch part 1 again. Watch part 1 if you have not. In chattel slavery in America, Black American slavery, you literally got punished if you learned how to read or write. And this was intentional because if you knew how to read or write, or you learned anything, you would then mentally release yourself from the shackles of slavery and it being their supposed God-given right to enslave you. So if you are mentally free, all they have left is the physical, because you might free other slaves. So they had to forcefully kill you or imprison you, because if you empower others, what would that do to slavery? That's going to break slavery in half. That's going to break the entire system. That's why they were doing all of those things that I mentioned in part 1 to make sure that slavery stayed intact, because that's how deep chattel slavery was. This was a deep, dark, demonic thing. This was not us working in a contract so we could free ourselves and start a new life and start from scratch. No. Because again, your child was born into slavery with no freedom since birth. From birth to death, you were enslaved. Did indentured servants go through that? I don't think so. Did you have to take on your slave master's last name? I don't think so. Were you bug broken, branded, mutilated? No. Were you sold off, separated from your family forever in servitude, never to be seen again, sold off to another plantation to be enslaved still? Don't think so. And of course, servitude was wrong. It never should have happened, but there still were rules and there was a level of humanity in servitude. Because in the end, servitude was a system used for poor Europeans and was a form of temporary hard labor that lasted almost a decade at most. They were never stripped of culture, never stripped of religion, language, family, their name. Any ounce of culture that they had, they kept. Before and after, it didn't change. Unlike chattel slavery, which was a brutal, centuries-long race-based system that was built on the dehumanization of Black people and the lie of white superiority. It was designed to erase identity, to establish dominance. And it was a system based off of the idea that I am superior, I have the right to do this to you because God says so. And again, servants were treated bad. I'm not saying they weren't. Obviously, it should have not been a thing. Nobody should go through anything like that. But y'all are trying to compare it. The person who says this is trying to compare it to chattel slavery. That's what they're trying to do. They don't say servitude. There's a reason they don't say my people were in servitude as well. They don't say that. They say my people were enslaved, specifically. My people were slaves. Y'all were not the only slaves. I was a slave too. Because what they're trying to do is make it sound like chattel slavery and indentured servitude is the same thing, which is disrespectful. Another little detail I noticed is the whole even black people enslaved black people. Did y'all know there were black slave owners? I bet you didn't know that. Oh my God, I bet you didn't know that. It wasn't just white people, see? Black people won't tell you that. Now, yes, on paper, there were black slaves. Again, details. They don't dive deeper than that. Notice, they stop right there. It's just like the whole slavery is over thing. They stop at slavery just like how they stop at black people enslaved black people. So it's the same as white people enslaved black people when it's not. Because this person that says this purposely leaves out the fact that black slaveholders' intentions of enslaving black people was to take the families back so they could keep their own families and their people together. It's not the same as establishing dominance and taking away somebody's identity. This is why you don't hear about stories about black people and black-owned plantations, because black people were bringing their families back together so they didn't have to be on white plantations. And that is such an easy debunk. Like, it's common sense. It's fucking common sense. But they will only keep it at surface level, being black people enslaved black people, and just stop right there. Just like the slavery is over thing. It's the same tactic. Now, the final narrative I want to attack in this category is the whole slavery was worldwide. It doesn't matter what race. Everyone is owned slaves. This isn't the first time slavery has been a thing. Everyone has had bad stuff happen to them. Slavery was all everywhere across the globe. Everyone has experienced slavery. Everyone has experienced violence and wars and bad things. Bad things have happened to everyone. No, black people aren't the only ones that have bad stuff happen to them. I don't know why they just act like they're the only ones. This stuff is worldwide. Now, this is a joke because we are the only group in history, meaning us, black Americans specifically, the only group of people who get done wrong and our grievances are all of a sudden just universal. Only with us are our issues universal and have happened before worldwide, and we need to realize it because we're not the only ones. And again, would they ever say this about 9/11? Would they ever say that 9/11 wasn't the first attack on a group of people? Would they ever say that Hiroshima wasn't the first bomb? I don't know why Asians are talking about Hiroshima. It wasn't the first bomb, because that's true. Robbing, murder, rape, bombs, they are worldwide things. They're not exclusive to America. But does that mean it shouldn't be talked about? Because notice, the person that says that everyone has got done wrong, they don't bring it up with them. Imagine a World War I or II or a Vietnam War veteran, right? Just imagine them talking about their experience. And someone pops out the cut and says that war is a worldwide thing. You're not the only one that went through a war. Do you know how evil that is? Because again, it's true. That's not false. World War I veterans, Vietnam War veterans, are not the first or last people that have been in a war. But isn't that a sick thing to say? Because you know what that does is undermines their pain. And it's literally a literal fuck you. That's exactly what that means. Fuck you and fuck what you've been through. Now, this person would never do that to a World War veteran. No, they wouldn't. No. World War I, II, Vietnam. They would never do that. They would never pull that card out. But you know who they do say this to? They say this to black Americans. They say this to victims of black American chattel slavery and their descendants, which is me, which is you if you're a black American watching this video. I even noticed this with another little detail. You know how they'll use the phrase modern day slavery? You know, slavery is like a casual word. It's used casually. And this is where the whole people thing comes in, because the only people that do this is people, you know, the people I named earlier, non-black Americans, and self-hating black Americans. They'll just use the word slavery casually. Like they'll be working a little too hard. Let's say they'll do overtime. your manager says, hey, stay 10 more minutes. You'll be like, man, this is like slavery, man. My old job was like slavery. And they do this. But never ever will they say, this is the modern day Hiroshima. This is like modern day 9/11. This is like the modern day Holocaust. They're doing it right now when it comes to ICE and immigrants. They're literally bringing up slavery and comparing it and making it sound like it's the same, which is so disrespectful. Words like terrorism and genocide, those are not everyday phrases. But someone will literally just be tired and use the word slavery casually, or they'll be working and someone will say, man, what am I, a slave? Those are casual words that are just regularly, these are phrases and words that are just used out in society. Now notice, we are the only group of people who have had something that is absolutely egregious. Like I said, it's the craziest, most evil and demonic tragedy to happen in the world, but especially in America. But our experience is used as a casual word. We know what that word means. But people don't have a problem using it, boxing it in with anybody else, because it lessens the experience and erases the context of what slavery means in America, and boiling down slavery to just work that's kind of hard. And let's get even deeper, because remember when I was saying all of this will add up later? Here's where it adds up, because I want to wrap this whole video up with this. Every single tragedy that is viewed as a tragedy, let's be really honest, they're only tragedies because white people are the face of it. Because America's standard of something that's really sad that happened to their American citizens is only when white people or white adjacent people like Asians or white Hispanics or anyone who aligns with white people or looks similar to white people, the whitest version of someone's race or ethnicity, like us, for example, if a biracial or a light-skinned person gets affected by something, it has more empathy. Things are only seen as harmful. Things are only seen as a tragedy when white people are affected, or at least the whitest version of someone's race or ethnicity is affected. And let's be honest, this is because white people are viewed as the pure race who is God's gift to the world. And people don't feel that way about black people. They don't, especially black Americans, because they see us as lesser than white people, which is why nobody wants to talk about what affected us or affects us, being slavery, Jim Crow, the crack era, microaggressions, gatekeeping, or anything that affects black Americans, period. These are not seen or never will be talked about as American tragedies on its citizens, because we're not even seen as Americans anyway. Black people can be raped, abused, branded, cannibalized, breeded on farms, everything in between. But if a white person or a white adjacent person, like white Hispanics, Asians, or just the lighter version of any group of people, literally slips on a banana peel, the sympathy, the grace, the understanding is there. The same grace is not given to us. Even animals are given more grace than us. And I especially believe that when it comes to white people. I genuinely believe they view dogs specifically as more human than black people. They see them as more worthy. They love and value dogs more than black people. I swear to God, I believe that 100% true. Hell, let's be 100% honest. The only reason we even care about Palestine, free Palestine, and we care about the war, the only reason we care about Ukraine is because they're closer to white. That's the reason why we even care, because white people are the ones that we see as human. So when anyone is adjacent to them, closer to them, when something happens to them, it's a call to humanity to feel bad, aka massa is sad, so you need to be sad. White people are sad, you need to be sad. White people are crying, you need to be crying. White people are mad and upset, you need to be upset. We have to feel bad. We have to fight for everybody. We got to feel bad for everybody's issues. Even though Palestine don't give a fuck about black people. The immigrants that are getting, deported, like Hispanics, mainly Hispanics are getting deported. They don't give a fuck about us. I don't care what anybody has to tell you. That whole black and brown bullshit lie. Hispanics don't give a fuck about you. Neither do Latinos. Because when something happens to us and only us, humanity and all that. Oh my God, no. It's not there. The perfect example to show you that what I'm saying is 100% true is the weaponization of black on black crime. Notice, Ukraine and Russia is an evil war that needs to end, right? No, guys, stop going to war. Oh, the world is going to shit. Oh, we need to stop ending these wars, man. No. Never is it framed as white on white crime, but we get black on black crime. And is that viewed as a tragedy? Is that viewed as a human issue? No, because we are not seen as human. So it's not an issue. If Palestinians were black, we would not even be talking about them. Only because they're closer to white people is the only, and I mean the only reason we even give a fuck. It's the only reason why we even talk about them. And I'm not saying they shouldn't be talked about, because they should. All of it should be talked about. Ukraine, Russia, black people, white people getting done wrong should be talked about. But notice, when we get done wrong, it's not talked about. It's not seen as a tragedy. Whether it's slavery, Jim Crow, mass incarceration, the crack era, Hurricane Katrina, the Tulsa massacre, police brutality, all the millions of things that we have dealt with. All of these things are not seen as American tragedies, and you cannot tell me I'm lying. You can't tell me when I'm telling a lie, because I haven't told one yet since this video has begun. Because notice, when Asian people are affected, it's a tragedy to Asian people and everyone else. Everyone else empathizes, especially when there's a tragedy that happens to white people. Everyone across the board empathizes. Everyone has sympathy. But we have terms like black on black crime. Anything that happens to us, like slavery, we're taught we actually need to forgive. We need to get over it. We need to know that it's the past. Our victimhood is justified and told you actually kind of deserve it. And it's because you're fucking black. You are black American. So that means your grievances don't matter. Because you aren't human, if we're being honest. So since you're not human, then we can say whatever to you. We can abuse you. We can antagonize you, bother you, rape you, disrespect you, falsely accuse you, blame you for shit that you didn't do, speak for you and your culture even though I have no authority to do so. We can arrest you, colonize you, fetishize you, use your culture. I can disrupt you when you talk. I can disrespect your establishment, your business, your authority. I can not show you manners. I can mock you. I can humiliate you. And this whole time while this is happening to you, all of this at once, you are not the victim in none of this. Because nothing that happens to you is a tragedy. Nothing that happens to you isn't deserved. Because you are Black American. And that means you are less than, especially when it comes to comparing you to white people. So who cares about what happens to you, because you're not human. And if you are, it's only barely. You're not as human as white people. You're not as human as Hispanics and Asians. You're not. So in result, you don't get that empathy. You don't get that gentleness. You don't get that kindness. You don't get that grace. You don't get that care. You don't get that humanity. Because you're Black American. Slavery is the past. Not every white person owned slaves. And you weren't the only one in history to be enslaved. A fucking joke.